All right, everybody, today we're going to be talking about the overhead press, how to do the movement, common mistakes with it, and fixes for those mistakes. To start off with, let's discuss the overhead press. It is a fantastic movement that works overhead pressing strength, obviously, challenging the shoulders, the triceps, the pecs a little bit, and then the upper back when you do a proficient job getting fully overhead. So now let's talk about the actual execution of the movement. So come on in. First thing, you want to have a barbell in a rack or else you'll be cleaning it up. And then from here, you're going to get a grip. So we're going to see Broden securing a grip width that is just outside of his shoulders. There's no perfect grip. It will depend upon your preferences to a degree, but generally somewhere around just outside of shoulders is going to be ideal. Now, if you come in close and look at the hands, you're going to see that he has the bar actually resting in his palm, not in his fingertips. That's a common issue that people have. And so you want to try to have a full grip on the bar, thumb on if possible. Some people will find that thumb off is more comfortable. If you do CrossFit or weightlifting, you're definitely going to want to have that thumb on the bar though. So then he's going to get the front rack position. So where possible, you want to try to have that bar resting on top of your shoulders. That's going to give you a position to start with, get set, be sturdy. It's going to be beneficial. Then we're going to be looking at his forearm position. So if you look at this angle here, you'll see that depending upon someone's ability to be in a front rack position, some individuals will have their elbows up higher, and that's often what we do during a front squat or a jerk. But when we begin to go overhead for pressing, we want to bring those elbows down. Sometimes it's called like the 5 o'clock position, where we want to have like on a circle clock face, we want to have those elbows pointed down. And that's going to get us in a position where we're more optimal to press up and back, since that's what we're going to be doing during the strict press. Now, another detail we want to look at is the individual's feet. So when we do a strict press, you want to have a nice, strong footing position. So that's going to be ideally a position where you would jump from. So you can play around with your foot position, have your feet forward, have your feet pointed out, play around and find somewhere where you feel nice and sturdy. Next thing we're going to look at is his trunk. So now, a lot of individuals think that this movement is just upper body and that it only goes from here up, but instead we have the feet, as I mentioned, we also have the trunk. So when we're looking at his rib position, we want to be thinking that we want to have ribs down, and so we're going to do that through having active abs, and then you can also think to brace. So if I were to punch him in the stomach as hard as he can, that's going to encourage him to brace, so that way he has tension in his trunk. That way as we go forward and talk about the way to press overhead, it's going to support that. Another detail is that he's going to have his butt nice and active, squeezing and pushing his hips forward slightly, because when we go to press overhead, having the hips forward is going to put us in a better position to drive vertically. So he's going to have abs braced, butt squeezed, elbows in that position we just talked about, and then he's going to think chin back. Again, we're going to press up, so we don't want to be hitting our face. So once the chin is back and everything's dialed in, he's going to start to press. So you can see the bar goes up and back. So he comes down. Key details again, you want to keep that tension in your stomach. You're going to notice that your ribs will come up a little bit. That's totally fine. But what we don't want is excessively leaning back to get that bar overhead. And you want to finish with elbows locked out, shoulders fully flexed, and head through. We really want to try to maximize getting that head through. That way you can work your upper back and finish with the shoulders fully flexed. Now, we also want to try to do a good job of returning that bar back down. So when he finishes, he's not just going to drop it drastically. He's going to have a nice smooth control, emphasizing being able to maintain his positioning. That's going to be ideal for building the maximal strength and hypertrophy. If you're a competitive CrossFitter or someone doing a strict press contest, that's where this would change and you might drop the bar down faster. Otherwise, that's going to be the primary key points in the execution. Now we're going to talk about common mistakes. When we're looking at the various types of common mistakes, a lot of them are best seen from a side view. So when you're looking at the strict press, one of the common issues that we see is that individuals will leave the bar out front. So instead of having the bar against the shoulder blade or against the collarbones, they're going to carry the bar out front. This is a bit exaggerated, but you can see that generally it's this sort of idea. And what happens here is that you're basically just loading up your front delts. It's really hard to hold, and it just burns you out, and you're not actually able to do as much weight as you think. I talked about when we're in the pressing position, we want to have the elbows down like a 5 o'clock position. If you take them to the opposite end, where the bar is behind, you're not going to be in a mechanically advantageous position to use your mid delt, your posterior delt, your upper back, and even your triceps to a full degree. So we want to have those elbows in front, bar back. Another one that is an issue is pressing forward. So when he goes up, we don't want that bar going in front of us. That's going to be, again, primarily your anterior delts. So when he comes down, he's going to have ribs locked down, butt squeezed, and that's going to give him a position to where he can be leaned back slightly, and then he's going to be able to press basically up and back. The bar will have that natural slight forward movement at the beginning, but not a ton. And that brings us up to another point, is that when he gets fully overhead, we want to get that bar back and head through. That's a common mistake where individuals will come and they'll finish the movement, and the bar will be out in front of them at the top, so he presses up, but he doesn't bring it back. It's just really awkward. And it takes a ton of shoulder strength to be able to hold that, and so it's not an optimal position to be able to maximally develop the whole movement, and you don't develop full shoulder range of motion either. So instead, we want to be able to bring it down, press fully overhead, get the head through, and have a nice straight line to where we're able to have ear over midfoot, bar just behind. So that's going to be ideal. Now, a couple other things that are going to vary is going to be, go ahead and rack it, the individual's wrist position. And this will depend upon, number one, why you're overhead pressing, and number two, your wrist range of motion. So if you are an Olympic weightlifter, this will vary. But if you're someone like a bodybuilder or someone else who's doing this for general strength, you want to try to have, ideally, a little bit more of a straight wrist position. We're going to be looking to have the bar, when it's actually in your hand, slightly behind your wrist. So you might have a little bit straighter wrist than that. Something along those lines. If you're a weightlifter or a CrossFitter, you might have a bit more of an extended wrist because you'll be doing other movements like push presses and strict presses. But then as you press up, you're going to think to punch, and you'll end up probably having a little bit straighter wrist as you move up and continue pressing the bar overhead. Now another one is, when Broden brings it down, is that as individuals press overhead, we want to try to minimize leaning back and arching your lower back excessively. I mentioned you're thinking to brace your stomach, so as he presses, he's going to push his hips forward a little bit, but he's not going to arch his back to lean back. He's just going to have a little bit of hip forward motion, keep it relatively neutral, press up and back. If you notice that you extend a lot as you press overhead, you might find that irritates your lower back. That's really common, and it leans you into this more bench press position versus a strict press, which can be a way to move weight, but not necessarily the optimal position for our goal. If you're trying to work your entire shoulders and upper back, you want to be able to stay forward and get that bar through. And then that leads us into, again, what's their goal? When we're doing a strict press, we want to try to minimize leg drive. So if Broden comes out and we check out his legs, when he does a strict press, his legs don't move. When he does a push press, his legs bend. So if we're trying to develop maximal shoulder abilities, we're going to keep the legs straight. If we're doing a push press, we're trying to just move as much load as possible, that's when we're going to be bending the knees more. And then the final point is going to be, again, range of motion. And that's going to be around your goals, but in general, most people are going to be trying to utilize a position where they bring the bar below their chin and then finish with an elbow extended overhead. Beyond that, it will vary. Do you bring the bar totally down to your collarbone or just right below your chin? Ideally, bringing it down all the way is going to be beneficial, improve your range of motion in this bottom position. Use a little bit more range, might transfer over to more hypertrophy. But then also, finishing and locking out overhead is very beneficial for working that upper back, which we talked about before. Instead of doing a ton of random thoracic drills, you can overhead press and work on thoracic extension and challenging that upper back by actually just finishing the press fully overhead. You can rack it, sir. So that's going to be the strict press. That's going to take you through how to do the movement, common mistakes, key points in execution, and things to watch for. Thank you for watching this video. Check out our other videos on the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.